Hello everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Scryb. Scryb was born from the very worst thoughts of criminal minds. Most of his opponents in battle end up begging to be defeated and screaming, "Just put an end to my suffering, please." So here we have Scryb as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, and I gotta say, I really do like his design. I'm big into psychology, and just on the face alone, if you've seen Watchmen, or if you just know about the test, this is the design of a Rorschach test, so I love the design, pretty good. However, let's get into stats. Now, interestingly enough, this monster's stats are not some of the best in the whole game. So for power, we have 2,783. In terms of dark monsters, this is second from last. This puts them just slightly higher than Nabodus' base power. So it's super bad, especially considering there's over 25 dark monsters. But before I completely bash on his power, I guess it doesn't matter too much because this monster is not an attacker. In fact, most of his skills involve being supportive or debuffs. So I guess you can just kind of exclude that he has such a low power, but it is just good to also know that this power isn't high at all. It almost feels as if it's scaled towards an epic monster. His life is 27,445, and even that life is rather mediocre. In terms of all the dark monsters, it puts him in 13th place. So far we have a monster with a pretty terrible power, a mediocre life, and then that moves us on to a speed of 3,344. And unfortunately, this is not one of the better speeds for dark legendary monsters. This puts him in 5th from the bottom. He's the 5th slowest monster, so that really sucks, especially considering his skills, which are pretty good. But I guess one of his saving graces is that he does have a trait immune to possession, which gives him immunity to any kind of possession. But even after considering that, it's important to note that some of the best Dark Deny monsters, we look at Krampus, we look at Will Razorface, we look at Mommy, they don't rely on possession skills. Mommy and Will have an AoE stun, and Krampus has AoE freeze and a single freeze. So Scryb had the potential to be a really good Deny monster, but because of his low speed, I doubt you'll be seeing him much in Team Wars. But anyways, there is a special skill that I want to talk about later on, so let's jump straight into his skills. For his default and special skill, we have a skill called Doctor's Note. Deals low physical damage, 25 damage, 13 stamina, no cooldown. We also have a dark skill called Freudian Slip. Deals low dark damage, 30 damage, 13 stamina, no cooldown. And for his special skill, it's called What Do You See? May possess all targets, may give nightmares to all targets. So it's an AoE possession and nightmares. Pretty good skill overall if we were talking about all monsters. But one thing to keep in mind is that there's lots of dark monsters that are immune to possession. There's actually 8 dark monsters immune to possession. And there's actually even 7 legendary dark monsters that are immune to nightmares, but that's not too much of a worry. But I do want to stress, this is why I doubt you really won't be seeing much of this monster in Team Wars. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he isn't usable. Again, I'll talk about one special skill he has later on. For some reason, this monster is the last monster on the Illusion Island, or if you're watching this video in the future, he was one of the last monsters in a progressive island. And if you know anything about progressive islands, the last monster is very difficult to get. You have to spend quite a bit of gems. So we're trying to find out why this monster costs as much as he does. But anyways, jumping into skills group 1, we have Sleep Terror. 50% chance of giving nightmares to all targets requires cooldown. We have an AoE Nightmares that deals no damage. It's 24 stamina, 3 turn cooldown. You have absolutely no reason to run this skill. A 50% chance of landing any negative effect, the chances of it actually landing are not so good. So moving on, we have a skill called Resilience. Gains damage boost, gains precision. So this skill is intended to target a single ally. It costs 28 stamina, it has no cooldown, it gives him damage boost, which is a 50% attack increase, and it gives him increased accuracy by 50%. Last on skills group 1, we have Possession Scroll. Deals moderate dark damage, 50% chance of possessing target. So it attacks a single enemy, it's 35 damage, 26 stamina, it has no cooldown. Again, the 50% chance to do any negative effect, there's no reason to run these skills, so we can completely disregard skills group 1. Moving on to skills group 2, we have Pareidolia. Deals moderate special damage, may possess target, requires cooldown. So it targets a single enemy, it deals 40 damage, 28 stamina with a 2 turn cooldown. So it's just your average possession skill, which I really do love. I highly recommend running this skill, especially because it works in conjecture with another skill. Now again, for Team Wars, there's 8 monsters that actually are immune to possession. And just to name a few of those monsters, we have Will Razorface, we have Mommy, we have Glitch. Those are the type of monsters you're actually going to see in War. So again, if we're speaking in the context of just Team Wars, because of monsters like that, having possession skills doesn't help you out too much. And keep in mind, he has low damage, so Scryb really relies on the possession aspect of his skills. But I'm going to move on to Rorschach Test. And what this skill does, it deals moderate special damage, applies 1 random negative effect to target. It's a 40 damage, 28 stamina, no cooldown, and it's our favorite, deals negative effect. So what I love about this skill is just that it has no cooldown, which means you can spam it over and over again if you needed to. This is also a skill I think you should run, and I do like that they decided to make these skills special based instead of dark based, just in case you do go up against a dark monster, you can deal a little more damage than you would if it was a dark based attack. And last but not least, on skills group 2, we have Sleep Tight. Gives immunity to nightmares and dark attacks to all allies for 2 turns. Requires cooldown. So this is a team skill, 26 stamina, 3 turn cooldown. Down here it says you'll be immune to nightmares for 3 turns, and you'll be immune to dark attacks for 2 turns. And that's contrary to what it says here, where it's immune to nightmares and dark for 2 turns. But just assuming this down here is correct, what's new and what's awesome is the immune to dark attacks. Having immunity to dark attacks can potentially be beneficial in team wars. And although Scryb won't necessarily work as a main deny monster, he can potentially work as a secondary support monster. So imagine a scenario where it's a team wars where your dark monster doesn't have to be your deny monster. Instead, the dark monster has a chance of being an attacker. So suppose your opponent has a dark attacker, someone like Barbatos. If you're running Scryb against that Barbatos, chances are that Barbatos will at most have 1 speed rune. So if you have Scryb with at least 2 speed runes, even though your base speed is pretty low, you're going to be faster than really any dark attacker that has 1 speed rune, as long as you have 2 speed runes. If you were to use the attack Sleep Tight, you have an immune to dark attacks for 2 turns, which would protect your common, your uncommon, your rare, depending what the rarity was. It would also protect your deny monster. So this is why I'm saying Scryb can potentially serve some sort of role in team wars. He's not the best monster to use, but he might serve some purpose. That being said, I do not believe you should run Sleep Tight. The immune to nightmares isn't that great, immune to dark attacks is great, but he has a skill similar to that in skills group 3. So let's just go ahead and move into skills group 3. In skills group 3, we have an attack called Phobic Disorder. Deals low special damage to all enemies, may give nightmares to all targets, of course cooldown. So it's an AoE, it deals 30 damage, 35 stamina, and it has a 3 turn cooldown. And there's actually not much to analyze about this skill. I don't think this skill is worth running. Again, keep in mind, about 7 dark legendary monsters are immune to nightmares, so that's one reason why you don't really need an AoE nightmares. But moving on to his next skill, Corrosive Persuasion. This skill is pretty darn good. May possess target, gains 1 extra turn, requires cooldown. So it attacks a single enemy, deals no damage, it's 28 stamina, it has a 4 turn cooldown. That's a pretty high cooldown, but it's because not only do you possess a monster, but you also get an extra turn. Now this skill is insanely good. If this monster was to have a faster base speed, this monster could have easily been one of the best dark monsters in the game. So I'm sure many of you already see it. You use Corrosive Persuasion, you possess, you get an extra turn, and then you use Pareidolia, and you possess again. So you can possess 2 monsters in a single turn. That is insanely good. It's especially going to be good in something like player versus player, but even in team wars, if you happen to have better speed runes than your opponent, you'd be able to possess the enemy's deny monster, and then you'd be able to possess the attacker. But this would only happen if you had better speed runes. If both you and your opponent had the same runes, then again, the enemy deny monster is probably going to go first if they're the dark monster. But that's something to keep in mind. This game is really dependent on runes and what level the runes are. Now again, this monster has a low base speed, so this is why I'm not saying he really works as a main deny monster. But if you happen to have level 10 runes and you were to give this monster 3 level 10 runes and your enemies don't really have that, this monster could work. However, I believe many people will argue, myself included, that that's a really unfair advantage, and given the same scenario, if we were to either give everyone level 10 runes or just eliminate runes altogether, the fact that this monster's base speed is low, the 5th from the bottom of all the dark monsters, that doesn't really help him out. But regardless of all that, you should definitely run this skill if you happen to get Scryb. So anyways, moving on to the last skill, which is similar to Sleep Tight, it's called Group Therapy. Gives immunity to possession and dark attacks to all allies for 2 turns. Requires cooldown. So it's a team skill, 26 stamina, 3 turn cooldown, immune to possession for 3 turns, immune to dark attacks. This is a better version than Sleep Tight, just because, again, if you're going up against dark monsters do tend to have possession skills, and even if you're going up against magic monsters. So Scryb can work against dark and against magic monsters, because your whole team will have an immunity to possession skills, and this will come in handy against monsters like Galante, against monsters like Violet. But again, monsters like Galante and Violet, they have a really high base speed. So if we're talking about the same level runes, there is no way Scryb will be able to go before Galante or Violet are able to do their possession skills. However, I am wondering, I'm not sure, maybe someone can answer this question, what was to happen if, say, Violet goes and does AoE possession and possesses all 3 of your monsters, except for Scryb, because Scryb has an automatic immunity to possession, and then you were to use group therapy and give all your monsters immune to possession. Would your monster still be possessed, or would the immune to possession like kind of cancel it out? If anyone knows the answer to that, I'd be really curious to know. But aside from the immune to possession, just like Sleep Tight, it has an immune to dark attacks, which is really one of the key things about this monster skill. I already mentioned it with Sleep Tight. You can potentially survive against monsters like Barbatos or against any dark attackers. This is the first monster to be able to create an immunity to dark attacks, with the exception of Queen Luthien and Volgar the Pure. So overall, I definitely think you should run group therapy. In fact, my recommended skill set for this monster would be group therapy, corrosive persuasion, Rorschach test, and pareidolia. You don't need to worry about running Sleep Tight, and you don't need to worry about running phobic disorder. Now, if you notice, the only two attacks that actually deal damage are from your skills group 2. Corrosive persuasion and group therapy, they deal no damage, which is why I said at the start of this video that it doesn't really matter that his damage is rather low, because you won't really be using damage attacks with Scryb. In fact, the recommended runes for this monster would be 3 speed runes, or 2 speed runes and a life rune. A life rune would just help him survive longer and be able to dish out attacks like Rorschach test whenever he needs to, or possess whenever he needs to, or if you wanted to, you could do 2 speed runes and a team speed. Now again, I feel the need to really stress this. This monster, if we're talking about you and your opponent having the same level runes, this monster is not usable for team wars in terms of a deny monster. You're going to need to find another monster. You're going to need Mommy, you're going to need a Krampus, you're going to need Will Razorface, you're going to need some other monster who can guarantee the deny. If you have better runes than your opponent, then arguably yes, you can use them as a main deny monster, but again, keep in mind 8 dark legendary monsters have immune to possession, and I'm talking about monsters like Glitch, I'm talking about Mommy, I'm talking about Will Razorface. Those are 3 monsters that I guarantee you will be running into in Team Wars, but you will also be running into Krampus, and fortunately for you, Krampus is not immune to possession. So if you know for a fact that you're faster than Krampus and you can possess Krampus and then possess the enemy attackers, easy 3 coins. So yes, if you have high enough runes, this monster can help you, but if we're talking about the same level runes, this monster will not be that good, unless we're talking about using him as a defense against the enemy's dark attacker. So I think this monster, it really depends on the circumstance of the Team War event. If we're talking about player versus player, I think this monster can totally be usable, so you can have fun with them there. And that's actually going to conclude my analysis on Scryb. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Let me know if you like this monster, let me know if you're going to be getting this monster, and let me know if I missed anything about this monster. With that being said, guys, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Remember to dream big and pursue your passions.